let's move along to the Duke Blue Devils. So Duke, they were 25-6 last year. They were pretty terrific. They were just behind Florida State in the ACC. Key departures for them: Vernon Carey Jr., Cassius Stanley, Trey Jones, of course. All three of those guys were second-round picks in the NBA draft. They had some other kind of ancillary departures, Jack White, Delorier, Alex
Mm-hmm.
O'Connell. Key additions is a big batch. Jalen Johnson, DJ Stewart, Jeremy Roach, all top 25 ESPN recruits.
Mm-hmm.
Brakefield was a top 35 recruit or so. And
Mm-hmm.
then you've got, elevated roles for guys like Matthew Hurt, Wendell Moore, Jordan Goldwire, and even like a little bit of Joey Baker. I think, my first question to pose to you for Duke, they're 2-2, but they've lost to two really good teams, Illinois and Michigan State. I'm
Mm-hmm.
really impressed with Illinois. Is it oversimplifying their issues to just say they don't have a point guard right now and it's really tough for them to create half-court offense, or are there kind of like some deeper issues there in your mind?
No, I think I think it goes beyond that, but I don't think there's something like, yes, I think it does go deeper than that, but I don't think it's like I don't think you have to like sort of split the atom to like
Right.
find the deficiencies. I mean, like, yes, at the top of the list, like you knew it was going to hurt when they lost Trey Jones, right? I mean, this guy's he was the half court engine for them last season. He was the transition engine for them last year. I felt like last year, Duke basically had like two different pitches. Like if you were thinking of them as a baseball pitcher, they had the fastball, which was like Trey in transition. It's just Trey weaving around. He's a great transition playmaker, great transition passer, hit-ahead passers, him driving diagonally and pitching it back to Stanley for a dunk or Wendell Moore for a finish or whatever. And then in the half court, it was Trey pick and roll and Trey to Vernon Carey Jr. post-ups. And so, yeah, I think Jeremy Roach has actually shown some flashes this year, but, he's not ready to be like a half-court engine. And then I want to circle back to that in a second because I also want to mention too, I think they're really missing having like a true back to the basket bully. The last 4 years we've seen Wendell Carter Jr., Marvin Bagley, Zion, Vernon Carey, and even if you want to the year prior, not like Emil Jefferson's like, a monster, but he was a post
year though. He was
somewhat of a post threat for them on that 16-17 team that also posted up Tatum a fair amount too.
Yep.
So, but like those guys, this team doesn't have those guys, and they're using Hurt as an interior offensive piece. And he's had a great, like Matt Hurt's been awesome to start this season. Like he's had, I think, a really good offensive year so far. And they're using him to switch on a lot of pick and roll. And like Matt Hurt's out there sliding against opposing point guards, which is sort of not like he's like, I don't project him to be like a great switch defender, but like he competes. He moves his feet and stuff. He tries. I don't know if it's the best defensive strategy for Duke, but I get why they're trying to like switch 1 through 5 with a young team when they're playing Hurt at 5. And I get why they would want to play him at 5. And that gets back to the thing I wanted to circle back on, which is like, they were clearly going to rely on guys like Wendell without Trey and with, a freshman like Jeremy Roach coming in. They were clearly going to rely on other guys to provide some playmaking. So Jalen Johnson, obvious candidate for that, right? Wendell Moore Jr., obvious candidate for that because he played some point guard for Duke last season when Trey was hurt, and also just like had secondary playmaking possessions as well for the Blue Devils. And so you're sort of assuming he's going to get better, and he was young for his grade anyways. It's like he's going to get better, and his development's going to mean a lot for them, and those guys can sort of handle the playmaking duties. And then when Roach comes online, like, now all of a sudden you've got 3 guys that can initiate offense. And so I should have mentioned DJ Stewart's a guy that probably deserves some playmaking possessions too. I think his best offense so far this year, especially in the Coppin State game, came like weak side, catch and goes on closeout attacks. But he's a physical with the basketball. I just don't think his awareness and decision making has been very good outside of the Coppin State game, unfortunately. But he's very talented. I think it's a little bit of an issue, though, where we've seen now with these 2 losses you just highlighted, Michigan State, Illinois, both of those teams, for stretches of the game, were able to put their center on Jalen Johnson in the half court, and he couldn't drive him.
Mhm.
Michigan State put Marcus Bingham on him. Illinois put Kofi Coburn on
Mhm.
him. And Jalen sort of settled for bad jump shots, can like pull up contested twos earlier in the shot clock. And that's a problem, like for Jalen, probably as a prospect,
Right.
I mean, like he's a very talented prospect and a very gifted athlete. It's just, he needs time to sort of like load up to get to his vertical game. And that's why he's so dynamic in transition. But in the half court, if he can't like laterally get around these bigger guys that are sagging off of him, he can't punish them with the shot right now. And it's harder for him to play up. Like he can't just, Zion Williamson like spring up and just play above everyone. And he's not giving them like a post up, interior threat either. So I think Johnson's been like pretty good this year in some
Great.
ways, but his inability to sort of like ignite the half court is a problem. And Wendell Moore Jr., like I kind of feel bad. Like
Same, man.
it's been brutal so far this year. 6 of 21 on 2-point attempts, including 1 of 11 on long twos for Wendell Moore Jr. I don't believe he's made 1 and 9 on threes too.
Right.
Like, I mean, the jump shot is just like
Like
no
0 for 6
confidence,
in Christmas State or something like that.
yeah. But so, and now, I mean, then like this week, like away from the basketball court, like this week has been probably a little tough for Duke because like, after I like, I agree with like the messaging out of the program. You know what I mean? Like I support people that are like concerned with like how the season is trending amidst COVID
Sure.
right now. But yeah, like that's something to contend with too. Like they canceled the rest of the non-con schedule. And they're going to try like, they play Notre Dame next Wednesday in ACC, and then they're going to send the team home for a few days after that before bringing people back for the bulk of conference play. So there's a lot of talent. The pieces, they can really get to some interesting lineups. Brakefield, I think, has been a little bit of a bright spot offensively off the bench. I'd like to see more Henry Coleman, but like short of like some of these guys finding another gear offensively in the half court, like I think these are going to be issues all year. And I feel like when you like next time you watch Duke, keep an eye on this. Like they bring the ball up, they run a little horn set or they run floppy. They run those are the two like primary sets so far this year. And with horns, they want to get into high low. And with floppy, even they're finding it into high low as well too, looking for Hurt or Brakefield or Coleman or Williams or Tapey, I guess, who's played a little bit. But those possessions, it's like one pass, one action of the set, and then boom, it stops. And then it turns into a spot up crap show after that, And I just don't know how I don't
Right.
know if there's a fix for that on the roster, unfortunately.
That's kind of what I wonder too. It's like, yeah, you can get as creative as you want with action, but if you don't have a primary on the ball playmaker, a lot of
Yeah.
that stuff breaks down anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
last couple thoughts I had for you on Duke, and you hit on these a little bit already. Brakefield does seem like a bright spot to me, and it's super super small sample size. He's only averaging like 13 minutes a game right now, but he
Mm-hmm.
is shooting the ball terrifically so far.
Yep.
And maybe there's something there that Coach K just doesn't quite trust yet defensively or something like that. But I do feel like at least he provides some spacing that would not alleviate in full the concerns about Jalen Johnson being able to be covered by fives and just kind of laying
Yeah.
off. Like there's still issues there, but it might help,
Yeah.
and I guess the other question is like, where do those minutes come from? I don't pretend to know that either, but it does seem like I wouldn't be shocked as the season goes along to maybe see Brakefield featured a little more in those lineups.
Yeah. I one of the things that I sort of wrote about this a little bit last week, like one of the nice things about Brakefield is he fits with all of their guys in the front
Yeah.
court. Like you can play him with Hurt, you can play him with Coleman, you can play him with Johnson. You could play Johnson I mean, this gets a little dicey as far as spacing goes, but you could even play, Johnson 3 plus Brakefield and Hurt. And they even tried, side note, they very briefly against Bellarmine, but they even tried Johnson at the 3 plus Hurt and Coleman at the 4-5, which is
Mhm.
sort of interesting because I do think they need to get more minutes for Henry Coleman. I think his team defense has been, in a very small sample, has been pretty impressive this year. But yeah, Brakefield, he doesn't get a lot of, he jumps about as high as Matt Hurt does on his jump shot, you know,
Yep.
which is to say, like, maybe you could get a couple index cards
Mhm.
underneath the sneakers, you know?
Not jump
Um,
shooters, not
so yeah, very much so. And so I think, you know, hard closeouts could give him a little bit of an issue, but he's shown a little bit of catch and go game.
mhm.
And in the Michigan State game, he had two right-handed finishes, including like a little inside hand finish in transition with his right. And like, I mean, that's two more right-handed finishes than Marvin Bagley and RJ Barrett had combined during their 2 seasons at Duke. So no, I like Brakefield's skill offensively. Even though, like, you know, he's not like a super explosive, you know, nuclear athlete, but just
Nope.
his ability to shoot means he can fit with basically anyone.
Yep.
Um, and I think that Brakefield Hurt combination is something to sort of like monitor how that functions this season as well.
Totally. And I loved your, I mean, look, Roach isn't ready yet, but you do see flashes
Totally.
of playmaking and like real burst with him. So,
Hmm.
maybe some of this gets alleviated as he develops. Although, like you said, there is going to be a pause here in the season.
Yep.
Last thing for Duke, it's so early for ranges and things like that. But I do think Matthew Hurt to this point, would I be shocked to see him come back? Not at all. But I think he's probably in the NBA draft discussion. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know where I would put him yet. Maybe somewhere 35 to 60 roughly, but he's definitely improved. There's no doubt about that. I think he's a little bit better putting the ball on the floor this year and just
Hmm.
more confident in general.
Totally agree. I thought there was one possession in the first game against Coppin State where he sort of like reverted back to last year's edition of Matthew Hurt, which like
Mm.
he caught the ball and he had some advantage. Closeout came and he sort of like hesitated on, oh, should I try to shoot over the top or should I swing it to the weak side? He ended up just sort of like holding the ball and then trying to create one-on-one, and it went nowhere and ended up forcing up a bad shot. And it's like, yeah, I mean, Hurt's a guy that against hard closeouts, it could be tough for him, except for like he can shoot over the top of a lot of those guys, like at least in college.
Yep.
I do think his like closeout game has been better this year. It's tough because like, you know, it on he's not gonna often be able to like pump, catch, and like straight line drive to the hoop and dunk. Like when he his catch and go game, it's a little more like methodical and
Yep.
sort of like twirly and spins and sort of get to his little herky jerk in between game. But that's okay. Like it's a counter, you
Yeah.
know.
That's right.
I think the defensive switching shows something too. Not like I think he's been dynamite doing it, but it's not like he's gotten lit on fire as a switch defender this year. He competes as a rebounder,
Mhm.
and I do think his interior offense, like that, maybe not won't going forward. That's probably not going to be like a huge part of his game. Like Matt Hurt as a prospect is like you want this guy because he's 6'9" and he can bomb threes.
Totally.
But having a little inside game is sort of interesting. Makes it seem like if you put a small on him on the next level, like maybe he'll be able to do something with a switch mismatch. So yes, he's improved, and I think he's playing himself into being like a, a draftable prospect,
That's
right?
where I'm at.
Certainly, like playing at Duke, that obviously helps. I wouldn't slap a first round grade on him right now, and
Okay.
maybe he'll never even play himself quite into that. But like, yeah, 6'9", the dude that can shoot and is efficient offensively. I know he doesn't really make a lot of plays for others. Like he's not like he's not much of a playmaker. Like he's a two outcome guy. It's like shoot or pass kind of deal. And not even like a pass to like set up a layup. It's pass just to keep it popping around the perimeter. But yeah, I think Hurt's been awesome this year so far. I think his offense has been special, and he showed the ability to score from all. I like to break the half court down in 4 levels as opposed to 3.
Mhm.
But if you want to say 3 or 4, however many levels you want to break it down, rim, mid range, 3 floater area, like he's scoring from all of those places with some efficiency.